Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to my guide to the Masked Carnival stage number 31, the bout against the great mimic, Go-Go. This singular stage was added in patch 5.45 and is required to finish this patch's Blue Mage story quests. In order to unlock it, you'll just have to have beaten the previous quests and their required stages as well. Oh, and there's a bonus achievement for beating this fast enough, which we'll go into more detail later. Before entering the fight, you're going to want to check your spells and make sure you got some required ones. Now, which ones you require will change a little bit depending on your confidence and how quickly you can kill the boss. The absolute safest thing to do for just the clear is to go with a healer mimicry and ensure you have Flying Sardine to silence, Eerie Soundwave to dispel, and Palm Cure or White Wind to heal. You'll also want Exuviation to Asuna some debuffs, and Diamondback to deal with one big attack in the second act. If you're more confident, you can go with a DPS mimicry and forego Eerie Soundwave and Palm Cure altogether to bring more offensive spells. I'd also highly advise bringing Moonflute and Final Sting to wrap up the second act of this encounter, alongside Whistle, Intelligence Potions, and whatever else you feel like you need. Act 1 is a bit slower paced, but has a few more spell requirements if you drag the phase out. Go-Go will often simply auto-attack and use Flamethrower to do a little bit of damage between his more powerful attacks. The big mechanic for Act 1 is Mimic. When Go-Go finishes casting Mimic, he will stand in place and taunt the player while gaining a Mimic buff. Attacking him while he has this buff will give him a stacking damage buff and cause him to obliterate you with a counterattack. You just have to stop hitting him whenever he casts Mimic. After his first Mimic, he will use Mimicked Sap. This is a large AoE targeted at the player that he will repeat 3 times in a row. Each time he casts Mimic Sap, it will get faster, so you'll likely want to start moving before the AoEs even appear, maybe stopping to get a quick spell off in between the first one going off and the next one starting to cast. Right after his last AoE is Mimicked Imp Song, which is just going to need to be silenced. If you don't, you become a helpless imp for 12 seconds, and you don't want that. After a few more autos and a flamethrower is Magicked Doom Impending. This will give the player a doom that can only be dispelled by getting to full HP. However, it also applies a debuff that lowers healing received to 0, so you'll just need to be at full health before Doom Impending finishes casting. After this is Mimic number 2, so just stop attacking. This will be followed by Mimicked Bunshin. This summons a Go-Go clone in the center of the room that assists Go-Go for his next 3 attacks. While Go-Go attempts to hit you with a line AoE, Mimicked Fire Blast, the clone will aim 2 narrow conal AoEs at you with Mimicked Protean Wave. There is a safe spot between the 2 Protean Waves, but I opted to just stay close to the center of the room and sidestep both of the AoEs with a small movement. This worked regardless of where Go-Go was standing and the AoEs were being shot. Now if you're going DPS mimicry and really went all out on Go-Go, you might be able to defeat him by just about now. If not, his next attack is Mimicked Raw Instinct. This gives him a buff that causes all of his attacks to automatically crit. You're going to need to Eerie Soundwave this off him, or you're going to be taking a bunch of bonus damage for the rest of the fight, or you just kill him around this time. From this point on, the fight is on repeat until you do defeat him, starting with another Mimic. Do not try to end this phase early with Final Sting. That's better saved for the second act of this encounter. For Act 2, Go-Go will take off his chains and is going to try much more directly to kill you. He'll start with a bunch of different Go-Go elemental spells. Go-Go Fire 3 will deal some damage, but more importantly, applies Pyretic, so you'll need to avoid moving or acting until Pyretic wears off. While you're under the Pyretic effect, he will also use Go-Go Blizzard 3, which is just a point-blank AoE that you'll want to avoid. Try to get a little bit out of range of Go-Go while he's actually casting Fire 3, and you may not need to move much, if at all, in order to dodge Blizzard 3. If you're super confident and your ping is good, you can also just get out of it if you're really close to him just after Pyretic wears off. This is followed by Go-Go Thunder 3, which is just an AoE that persists on the arena after it hits. The next 2 attacks are Go-Go Flare and Go-Go Holy, which both just hit you very, very hard. Not Diamondback hard, but you'll definitely want to make sure you're staying above half HP pretty much this entire time. What does hit you Diamondback hard is the follow-up Go-Go Meteor. This is actually a persistent attack that drops small AoEs, large AoEs, proximity AoEs, and an unavoidable big meteor AoE. Now most of this phase is simply dodging all the little meteors as they attempt to squash you while staying away from the proximities on the opposite side of the room. Now as the second proximity AoE is about to hit the arena, the whole arena will be covered in one final big AoE. This attack must be Diamondback in order to survive. I recommend saving Swiftcast to use on Diamondback here in case you need to do it very, very late. It's also ideal if you diamond back a little closer to the center of the room, or just diamond back as soon as you see the room-wide AoE and you're safe from any of the smaller ones falling around. As soon as the big meteor hits, Gogo will cast Charybdis and summon 2 persistent AoE tornadoes across from each other in the arena. These will occasionally pulse AoEs that are slightly larger than the radius of the AoE of the tornadoes, similar to Floor 25's Charybdis mechanic. If they hit you, they'll drag you into the center, so you really don't want that to happen. I've only ever seen these spawn in the intercardinals of the room after doing this several times just to check, and I'm still afraid that that might be confirmation bias. This is the big reason why I suggested diamond backing closer to the center of the room, because if your diamond back lasts too long and a Charybdis gets dropped on your head, it's not going to be good. Now, if they are always on intercardinals and it's not just confirmation bias, then the cardinals would be safe in this case to diamond back the big meteor as well. After the first 2 tornadoes appear, Gogo will use Ice Storm. This does a little bit of damage and places a dot and a heavy on you. I used Exuviation twice to remove these debuffs, and I recommend you do that pretty quick. Also, 2 more tornadoes will be spawned 90 degrees apart from the first 2, so just make sure you aren't around those areas either, as the heavy can make it kinda scary to get out of them. Now, if you don't want to Asuna the Heavy, I guess you could Loom, but you're going to be casting a lot of Looms, so I really don't recommend that. Now, while all 4 tornadoes pulse and quite frankly blind you out of existence, Gogo will do 3 back-to-back Gogo Thunder 3s. You want to bait these in places safe from the tornadoes, so you have a little bit of space to do a couple of follow-up mechanics. I mean, all it is another Gogo Fire 3 followed by a Gogo Blizzard 3, exactly like at the start of the fight, but you want to make sure you have space to actually avoid the blizzard so you don't trap yourself along the edge or something. After this, the fight pretty much just repeats. You'll get another Flare plus Holy, followed by Meteors, Charybdis, Ice Storm, the 3 Gogo Thunder 3s, Fire, and Blizzard. Gogo has just over 1 million health, so depending on how safe you want to play it, you'll need to gauge when you want to final sting him. I've had some fat 180k to 200k final stings when I'm not even fully buffed, but I've also had some lower end 120 to 150ks as well. If you're in DPS Mimicry, the odds of you direct hitting and critting is also way higher, and if you're not in DPS Mimicry, that's going to be lower, so you might want to weigh that into your decision making as well. I liked to wait until about 12% on my first clear, and then my other clears I end up just getting them lower than I intend by the time I even remember to do it. But you can definitely get them from a much higher health pool if you're potting, whistling, using Tingle, Off Guard, Moon Flute, and then Final Sting. All that stuff will make it do a lot of damage. With that, you've beaten stage number 31. However, there is one more achievement for you to chase. If you manage to defeat Gogo in under 6 minutes and 50 seconds while also avoiding all of his dodgeable attacks, you'll obtain the achievement Violets Are Violet and get the title of the Truest Blue. I'm going to do a separate talk through on number 31 with some advice on how to tackle that challenge, but realistically, if you follow the advice I gave you in here and just kill him faster, bring a bunch of primal spells, make sure you get that final sting at a higher percentage towards the end, and generally just don't play scared, it's a pretty easy achievement to get and shouldn't need too much more guidance from what I've given you here. But I know some people will ask, so I'm going to make a separate video so this one doesn't drag on too long. And with that, that's going to be a wrap for my guide to the Masked Carnival number 31. Be sure to click the, I guess I'll put an I in the top right and maybe a link in the description for that separate walkthrough. And be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. We do all sorts of 14 videos, and we have some other fun stuff coming up. Outriders is going to be going into its demo, Bravely Default 2 is going to be coming out soon, and March is going to be full of stuff like Kana, Monster Hunter Rise, and I'm sure there's other titles I'm already forgetting. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you all in the next one, and until then, take care.